Hi, I'm Kaylee. Peach is my daddy, and I hope you enjoy his interview. But first, check this out.
When John got sick, he was still working his job, and he goes home, and for 7 days, every day, the children were singing, "Daddy's home, Daddy's home, Daddy's home." And then last month, his land investing income exceeded his job income, and he quit his job. It's amazing. Like, he now spends 4 to 5 hours a day with his children. His wife doesn't have to work anymore. I mean, and for me, that is so gratifying. Like, I can die in peace. I mean, we have so many stories like that where people started as a side hustle, then it started out as gas money, and then became vacation money, then it became mortgage money, and then it became, hey, I've got a choice. Does my wife continue working, or does she stay home with the kids, or do I quit my job? And it's so amazing for me to have that impact.
My guest on the show today is Mark Podolsky. He is the founder of the landgeek.com. First time ever I've had anybody come on the show to talk about buying and holding onto land and making a crazy amount of money. Mark's going to share with us some of the returns. 300% return on the buy and up to 800 to 1,000% return on investment. It sounds too good to be true, so I asked Mark every single question I could to try to break this thing down. Real exciting. I think you're going to be excited to learn more. So without further ado, let me bring on Mark Podolsky. He is the founder of the landgeek.com and also someone who's actually done over 5,000 transactions in buying and holding onto land across the United States. Here we go. Alrighty, I got Mark Podolsky, the Land Geek, on the show. Before we hit record here, I got super excited because he's literally down the street from where I live here in Phoenix, and I had no idea. And so this is amazing. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Chris Peach, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So I feel like we're neighbors here. I feel like instead of doing this over the phone, I should just be driving over to your house, and we should grab a microphone and just do this. This is what we probably do next time.
Absolutely. Come to the Garage Mahal. I work out of the garage.
I love it. So the landgeek.com, I'm super stoked. I was telling you that I've had a lot of guests on the show. We've talked about real estate. We've talked about investments. We've talked about turnkeys. We've talked about a lot of different things that involve building wealth, different strategies. And this is episode 98. And yet we have never had anybody talk about pure land and how to build extreme levels of wealth with just using raw land. And so when I saw that you were doing that, I thought, okay, we have to have this guy on the show because I don't know anything about it. I'm going to be honest with you. I know nothing. So as the listener, feel like you are going to be asking questions through me because I want to know, I want to learn, and I don't know anything. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to share, Chris.
Very cool. So before we jump in, I want to get a little background so our listeners know exactly who Mark is. So we're here in Phoenix, but where did you grow up? Kind of give me like maybe the overview of Mark.
Sure. So I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. I went to school at Indiana University. And after college, I spent 6 months in an existential crisis traveling through Australia, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. Came back to Australia. I moved to Kansas City for a job with a mentor named Raj. Raj helped dentists buy and sell dental practices. So he taught me basically how to buy and sell dental practices, how to appraise them, look at cash flow, create cash flow statements, return on investment, how to get financing, all these things that a young dentist would need to buy a practice and an older dentist would need to sell practice. And I was getting married, and I'm in Kansas City, and my wife and I go and visit my future in-laws in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'm looking around, and it's beautiful, and people are young and energetic. I don't love my job, so I get a job in Scottsdale working with a boutique investment banking firm, working with private equity groups in mergers and acquisitions. Well, Chris, I hated it. I had a 45-minute commute to work and back on the 51, fighting that traffic every day. I was micromanaged. It was long hours. It was high stress. And it got so bad for me that I wouldn't get the Sunday blues anticipating Monday coming around. I'd get the Friday blues anticipating the weekend going by really fast and having to be back at work on Monday. So my firm hires this guy, and he's telling me that as a side hustle, he's going to tax deed auctions. He's buying up raw land, pennies on the dollar. He's advertising them online, and he's making an average 300% return on his investment. Well, Chris, I'm from St. Louis. I'm from the Show Me State. I don't believe him. So I go to New Mexico with him. I've got $3,000 saved up for car repairs. I do exactly what he says. I buy 10 half-acre parcels at an average price of $300 each. I put them up online, and the next 30 days, they all sell for an average price of over $1,200 each. 300%, it worked. So I took all that money. I went to another auction in Arizona where I lived, and there's no one in the room. It's 2,000. And I'm buying up lots. I'm buying up acreage for nothing. And over the next 6 months, I made over $92,000 cash on that one auction. So I go to my wife. I'm like, honey, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to become a full-time land investor. And she says, absolutely not. She's pregnant at the time. So I said, fine. So I worked land investing as a side hustle for 18 months until the land investing income exceeded the investment banking income, and then I quit, and I've been doing it full time. I've done over 5,200 deals since 2001.
Okay, so I got a bunch of questions here. Okay, so I'm the kind of guy that's like, I had the shiny object syndrome. So when I start hearing something like this, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to jump in. But I have a mentor who's told me, Chris, slow down. Let's ask some real questions here. I want to hit you with any question that comes to my mind. So the first one is, okay, 300% return on investment sounds amazing. But one of the things that I've learned from him, learned from my dad, that if something sounds too good to be true, it often is too good to be true. And I'm sure you've had this asked before, right? Because if there's 300% return on investment, everybody would be doing this. So the first question is, why isn't this widely known?
Yeah, because it's an uninteresting niche, right? You won't go on HGTV or the DIY network and see Flip This Land. It's just me in front of my computer. I mean, this is 90% automated with software. It's as unsexy as it gets.
Well, it is unsexy, but I also have a friend that does very, very well selling handkerchiefs online to the tune of 7 figures a year. And, we talked about handkerchiefs, and he's like, I don't really care about the handkerchiefs, Chris. I like the end result in my bank account. So I think everybody understands that. It doesn't have to be – you don't have to be LeBron James, NBA Finals slam dunking to generate income and be very, very happy. There are other ways out there. We had somebody on the show that owns a business picking up trash and does really well. And, it's not sexy. So going back to that New Mexico trip, so you have a buddy takes you there just on a whim. How much did you get started with?
$3,000.
So $3,000. And so if you're buying half-acre parcels, you said for $300 a parcel?
Correct.
Where do you find – where in New Mexico is this land?
So this is rural New Mexico, and the properties I buy are usually 2 to 3 hours from the nearest big city. So this is inexpensive raw land. Essentially, this is the way the model works. So, Chris, you're in Phoenix, Arizona, right? And I go to a county in Texas, and I see on the tax delinquent list, which is public information, Chris Peach owes $200 in back taxes on this 10-acre parcel in Texas. Well, you're advertising two things to me. Number one, you have no emotional attachment to that raw land. You live in Arizona. The property is in Texas. And number two, you're distressed in some way. When we don't value something, we don't pay for it, right? So maybe you just lost your job. Maybe you haven't visited the property in 5 years and you're starting to resent the property taxes. It doesn't matter what it is, but you haven't paid your property taxes. You're getting notices every single month from the treasurer saying that if you don't eventually pay your property taxes, you're going to lose that property to a tax deed or a tax lien auction or an investor. So I basically look at the comparable sales on that 10-acre parcel for the last, let's say, 12 to 18 months. I'll take the lowest comparable sales, and all I'm going to do, Chris, is divide by 4. And that gets me what Warren Buffett would call a 300% margin of safety. So I'm not going to be like the housing guys. I'm not going to send you a letter saying, I'm interested in buying your land. I'm going to actually send you an actual purchase offer for the land at this price, right? So let's say, for example, the comps are $10,000. The most I'm going to pay for that property is $2,500. So you get my offer of $2,500. You owe $200 in back taxes. You're like, screw it. $2,500 is better than nothing. In reality, 3 to 5% of people accept.
Okay, that was my next question. So kind of going back what you said there, though, I want to just kind of back up a little bit. So let's just use real numbers. I like that. $10,000. you are going to offer 1/4 of that. You're always going to use that 25% rule, it sounds like. So $2,500 on 10 grand. And you said 3 to 5% are going to say yes because those 3 to 5% don't have the money. They're back taxed. It's a piece of land they probably don't have any emotional attachment to, or neither do you. Is that why this is working?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so now you have this piece of land 2 hours from civilization in Texas. What's the next step? What are you doing with it?
So you accept the offer. Well, Chris, I can't just buy it from you for $2,500. Number one, I have to determine you still own that property. Number two, I have to make sure the back taxes are only $200, right? Number three, I have to make sure that there's no breaks in the chain of title. Number four, I have to make sure there's no liens or encumbrances on that property. Number five, I have to make sure there's something compelling about the property. What can you do on the property? What are the restrictions? How close is it from the nearest Walmart? What's the road like? Is it gravel? Is it paved? Is it rocky? What's compelling about property? Is there mountain views? So am I near a national forest? Like, what can I do with it? And while I'm doing my due diligence, I'm literally creating my marketing package. So everything checks out. And then I buy the property from you for $2,500. And then, Chris, I have a built-in best buyer. I'm going to sell this property in 30 days or less. I'm going to make an average ROI of about 800 to 1,000%. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do it right now. So do you know who my buyer is?
No, I'm like dying to know more. So just keep talking because I love it.
The best buyer, the built-in buyer, are the neighbors, right? So I'm going to send out neighbor letters saying, here's your opportunity, protect your views, protect your privacy, expand your holdings. And oftentimes, the neighbors will buy it just out of the fear of who's my neighbor going to be. Now, if the neighbors do pass, then I'm going to go to my buyers list. If the buyers list passes, I'm going to go to a little website you've probably never even heard of called Craigslist. It's the 10th most trafficked website in the United States. And I'm also going to go to a website called Facebook Buy-Sell Groups. And using software, I can automate my marketing, and I can put out about 120 ads by just pressing a button. So, and if that doesn't work, I'll go to landmodo.com or landandfarm.com, landflip.com, all these land platforms where people like to buy and sell raw land. So now, the way I'm going to sell it is I'm going to make it irresistible. I'm going to make it a car payment. So I'm going to ask the neighbor to put $2,500 down at, let's say, a car payment of $449 a month at 9% interest over the next 8 years. So I'm going to get my money out on the down payment or within, let's say, 6 months of the down payment. And then I've created a passive income stream of $449 a month. And Chris, I don't have to deal with any renters, rehabs, renovations, or rodents. And because I'm not dealing with a tenant, I'm exempt from Dodd-Frank, RESPA, and the SAFE Act, this onerous real estate legislation. And so essentially, the game that we play is, can we create enough of these passive income notes where our passive income exceeds our fixed expenses, and then we're working because we want to, not because we have to. So I call it the ultimate subscription model. It's a one-time sale. I get recurring passive income, and I don't have to deal with anything physical.
So these are like buy and hold strategies then on these land deals, right?
Absolutely. I don't want to ever flip it for cash because, the cash is nice, but then I'm starting again from scratch. I'd rather build my wealth slowly, own the underlying asset, because when I'm selling it on a land contract, which is very different than a deed of trust. So there's no cost of foreclosure. So Chris, if you stop paying me that $449 a month, I keep your down payment, I keep all your monthly payments. You've got 30 days to cure your default. You don't cure it, then I go ahead and resell it to another person. I get another $2,500 down. I get another $449 a month, and it just extends that payment out in time beyond 8 years, and it increases my ROI.
Sure. My question is then, where are you getting this 9% kind of rule of thumb? I think, that seems to me it's a little high. Why are people willing to do the 9%?
Because there's no credit checks. It's easy money. So it doesn't have to be 9%. You could do 0%. It doesn't really matter because we're making 800 to 1,000%. But if I'm not charging any interest, or if I don't advertise interest, I have no lever to negotiate.
That makes sense. Okay. So my next question then is, have you ever come across a deal where you buy this land, you're in it, and now you just cannot find anybody to purchase it back from you?
Yeah, it's crazy to say, and it's probably irresponsible, but since 2001, I've never been stuck with a piece of raw land. There is literally a pig for every barn. And when I first got started, I mean, this is a perfect illustration of this. I bought 40 acres in New Mexico on the side of a mountain. I totally messed up in due diligence. And so of the 40 acres, only 15 of it could you even access. The other 25 was on a side of a mountain. And I paid $2,500 for it. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? No one's going to buy this property. You can't even get to it. It's on the side of a mountain. So I put it on eBay at $1 no reserve. And I thought, well, if I just get $2,500 back, I'll be happy. The first day it got bid up to $2,500. By the 10th day, it was at $32,500. And I'm freaking out. So the winning bidder, I call him right away. I'm like, you realize, like, you saw the ad, like it's on the side of a mountain. And he's like, it's perfect. And he turned out to be a director in LA. And he wanted to film out there, and he didn't want to deal with having to get permits. So it's an insane niche in that sense that people would just love to buy raw land. You don't realize it, but there's a lust for land in this country.
So you're saying you've completed over 5,000 land deals and you've never been stuck with a property?
Correct.
Wow. That's blowing my mind. Because I've had people in real estate that have never, people that are, buy and hold on houses, and every once in a while, they get a house they can't rent, so they flip it to try to break even on it, or, just try to dump it to break even on it. But you've never had the issue of, oh, crap, I bought the wrong piece of property, and I'm sitting on it, I'm in it for whatever amount of money, and I'm not being able to get any kind of return on it.
Correct. I mean, it's insane. But people love raw land. There's literally no limits to the imagination of what you can do on raw land. I mean, you can even buy swampland, and you can grow shiitake mushrooms on swampland. It's real. If you do your due diligence correctly, I don't care what asset you buy. You buy any asset, 25 cents a dollar, there's someone else on the other end of that deal.
Hey guys, I just wanted to pause and take a second to say thank you from me to you for listening to and supporting the Money Peach podcast. Without listeners like you, this show definitely would not be possible, so thank you. The number one question that I receive is this: Peach, I just don't know where to start when it comes to my money. So many of us out there are living paycheck to paycheck. We have tons of debt. We're not making any headway. We can't save any money. We want to go on a freaking vacation where we pay cash for it. Oh, and let's talk about retirement savings and kids' college planning on top of that, right? Where do you start? Well, that's why we created the cash flow formula. The cash flow formula is the same system that Andrea and I used to pay off $52,000 in debt in only 7 months. And the best part is it's 100% free, meaning we are going to send you the free tools and a free lesson on how to set up your own cash flow formula. So to get started, go over to getcashflowformula.com. That's GET cashflowformula.com. Once again, head on over to getcashflowformula.com to get your free copy and your free lesson on how to get started the right way. All right, guys, now back to the show. I'm going to back up here. I want to try to regurgitate what you said for me and for our listeners, okay?
Sure.
When you're searching for land, where are you looking?
Okay, so let's be honest about it. Nobody wakes up and thinks to themselves, boy, I'd really like to buy some raw land today in Minnesota, unless you live in Minnesota, right? But Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Texas, Nevada, California, Oregon, Washington, Florida, right? So you got your sunshine states, you got Florida, and you got California, right? And a little bit in the Northwest. These are fast-growing states, and these have, literally billions of acres of raw land available.
Okay, so you have it kind of broken down into certain states that you like to look at.
Correct.
Okay, so do you go into the county assessor's website and look where are you finding the...
Yeah, so you can get all this data at a website called NACO.org. N-A, N as in Nancy, A, C as in Charlie, O as in Oscar.org. And you can get the assessor email, phone number, the recorder email, phone number, the treasurer email, phone number. So if you can't get the list from the treasurer, go to the assessor and get the entire real property list, and then you're going to scrub that list. You're going to get rid of the commercial property, the industrial property, the residential homes, and you can sort it by use code, which might be VL for vacant land. So now you have the raw land. You're going to do one more batch by acreage, because Chris, if I send the same offer that it has 1 acre that has 10 acres, the person with 10 acres is going to send me back glitter in the mail. They're going to be really mad, right? So I'm going to batch it by acreage, do my pricing, and then send out my offers.
Okay, so we're going to put links in the show notes here. I'm on it right now. It's the National Association of Counties. So if you don't have a pen and paper handy, we're going to have links to here. Okay, so I go here, I find a property, find vacant land.
Right. So there's 3,007 U.S. counties, and so that's really where you're going to start.
Oh, okay. So I did not know that. That's something, 3,007 U.S. counties across. So are you looking strictly United States?
Only the United States, because, there's so much land here. Like, why would I even bother going to like South America? I mean, I know people that's their specialty. I don't want to take any government risk where the government wakes up one day and says, hey, we'll take all your private property. The United States has a really, really solid fundamental value of land ownership. So I don't want to mess anywhere else.
Okay, so next steps is you find a piece of land. You find somebody that maybe owes whatever in back taxes. We'll say owes $300 in back taxes. And so you look at it. Where are you getting the value of that land?
Okay, so you're going to go to the county assessor to get the value. And that's all public information.
Okay, so you go to the county assessor's public information. Let's say we find a parcel and it's $10,000. And so your rule of thumb that you've been using since 2001 is if it's $10,000, I'm going to offer 25%.
Correct. I'm going to divide by 4. Right.
Okay, divide by 4. So you've done over 5,000 of these, so you have obviously some incredible data. Out of 100 properties that you contact or 100 people that you contact that own these land deals, or how many of them are going to come back and say, you have a deal, yes, I'll sell it to you at 25%?
Right, so 3 to 5%. So if it's under 3%, then the market is telling me my offer is too low. If it's over 5%, the market's telling me I may have come in actually too high and I need to retrade.
Okay, that makes sense. So you have that 3 to 5%, and so then you take ownership of this property. You're never having to go even visit it, right? It's all over. I guess it's over the computer.
Yeah. I mean, it's all. Yeah. So we crowdsource our due diligence. So I might do a local Craigslist gig and have someone go out, shoot pictures, fill out my property report, shoot video. Hey, look, are the neighbors dumping? What's the road like? Take pictures and get a feel for that if it's a new area and do that. And that costs like $50.
Okay, perfect. So you do that. And so you take ownership of this land.
Right.
And so now the next step is let's find the buyer. And in your expertise, doing over 5,000 of these, the buyers are people that are living in that area around there for the most part.
Yeah, that's going to be your lowest hanging fruit are going to be the neighbors, right? And then you can go to your buyers list. So when you've been doing it as long as I have, you already have a list of VIP buyers that just like raw land. And you can just send out an email. I can sell a piece of property just by picking up the phone or doing an email, right? Now, if you don't have a buyer's list, you've got to start building one using what we call a squeeze page, where you give somebody some kind of value. So, for example, my squeeze page is 3fatallandbuyingmistakes.com. So you get this report, how to avoid the 3 fatal land buying mistakes. And in exchange, I get your email, and then you get on my VIP list, you get a discount, we do all that. So you start slowly building your buyer's list, and you can also get leads from Craigslist and Facebook buy sell groups. But the only thing you really own is your list. That's really the asset you want to slowly start building from day one.
I think that's with any business, in our business as well. One of the biggest things we're doing is we're always trying to build our list and provide value to people who are obviously, engaged with what we have to offer. They wouldn't be on our list, right? It's kind of like you said, no Joe Schmo is just going to come along and download that guide unless they're interested in land deals, and then they're going to get information from you on land deals. So you have this list of people, or you have the neighbors, or you're looking on Craigslist. In the 5,000 plus deals, what is your hold time on these properties?
So if we don't sell within 30 days or less, we've got to change something. Either the price has to go down, the down payment may have to go down, maybe the price has to go up. Maybe that we're indicating to the market that we don't think this property is very valuable. So oftentimes we might have to raise our prices. Maybe we have to lower the monthly. Maybe we have to raise the monthly. So we just have to do something different. Maybe we have to change our headline. Maybe our headline is just not connecting with the market. No one's clicking on it. So oftentimes in marketing, we just don't know, but we know something has to change if it doesn't sell within 30 days or less.
Okay, so that's 30 days or less is your goal time frame.
Right.
And then you said 300% is what I heard you say earlier, and then I started hearing upwards of 800%.
So 300% is liquidation value, right? So if I have to liquidate the property, if I need cash, then I need to make a 300% return on investment, right? But the way I like to sell is only on owner financing and creating a note portfolio. So I make average 800 to 1,000% because of time value of money.
Wow. 800 to 1,000%. This is actually blowing my mind in a way, and I'm trying to get my mind around it. What is the most common question you get from people like me?
Why on earth would you share this with anybody?
Okay, there you go. Why are you sharing this?
Right. So, once you've done something for a decade like I had, right, you start getting bored. And so one day, a guy named Tolle called me out of the blue. He was on my Frontier Properties website. He said, hey, can you teach me to do what you do? And I said, I don't teach people how to do this. And he said, well, I'll pay you this amount of money. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I go to my wife, like, honey, what do you think? She's like, well, you're going to create your own competition. Why would you ever do that? So we did the math. And the way that the math works is that the market is so big that you, me, a million other people can be in this niche. We are all going to run out of money before we run out of deal flow. And so I made her this promise. I said, look, I'll teach, but as soon as a seller calls me and says, hey, Mark, I got your offer. I've got 3 others just like it, and yours is the lowest, I'm going to stop teaching. Since I've been teaching, my business has only increased. Since I've been teaching, my clients' business has only increased. Since I've been teaching, the margins have remained where they've been. And what essentially has happened is basically this massive market. And if you go to, let's say, to a real estate investor meeting, right, and there's 100 people in that room, 99 of them are going to be landlords, house flippers, or wholesalers. You and I, Chris, are the only land guys because, again, you're not going to go on HGTV or the DIY network and see Flip This Land. It's boring. And it's just this incredibly big market. No private equity groups, no hedge funds are doing it. If you ask anyone conventional, they'll say, look, don't buy land. It doesn't cash flow. Right? We made it cash flow.
Yeah, that's powerful. I think it's awesome what you're doing. I think even, like your wife said, you're going to create your own competition. But kind of on a side note, it's funny you brought that up. So I meet with this men's group. We call it a mastermind. And we meet every 2 weeks. And one of the guys was telling us about his meeting with his coach. And he said that, one of the things he took away is there's 6 human needs of fulfillment. And these 6 needs are, number 1 is certainty. Like, you want to have food on the table. You want to be able to make rent every month, the kind of certainties in life. That's one of the needs for fulfillment. Number 2 is uncertainty. Life is boring if we can predict every single thing. You have to have that little bit of uncertainty. 3, significance. We want to be recognized in life. 4 is connection and love. 5 is spirit and growth. But the 6th is contribution. And so what he was saying is he's like, I've made gobs and gobs of money, but the thing that I haven't really done is contributed beyond providing myself for money. I want to go out and do that for other people and reach other people. And so kind of what you said, you got bored. 16 years into or 15 years into a decade of doing these land deals, like they say, you have to have all these areas of fulfillment to feel fulfilled. And if you're not contributing, you're not passing this knowledge on to someone else, then you're never going to be truly fulfilled. So I don't feel like you're not going out there and creating your own competition. You're fulfilling yourself even more by contributing to help somebody else. Because, hey, think about this. In 2001, you hated your job. You were done. And a guy takes you to New Mexico and completely changes your life, right?
Right. Yeah, no, it's true. And I mean, I just did a podcast last week with John and Valerie Burnett. And they started in July with me. And last month, they have 2 young kids, 1, 2, and 1, I think like 8 months. And when John got sick, he was still working his job. And he goes home, and for 7 days, every day, the children were singing, "Daddy's home, Daddy's home, Daddy's home." And then last month, his land investing income exceeded his job income, and he quit his job. And it's amazing. Like, he now spends 4 to 5 hours a day with his children. His wife doesn't have to work anymore. I mean, and for me, that is so gratifying. Like, I can die in peace. And if you go, and I mean, we have so many stories like that where we started as a side hustle, then it started out as gas money, and then became, vacation money, then it became mortgage money, then it became, hey, I've got a choice. Does my wife continue working, or does she stay home with the kids, or do I quit my job? And it's so amazing for me to have that impact and be that pebble in the pond. Because let's face it, Chris, for couples, there's 3 things they fight about the most. It's money, sex, and the kids. Well, I can't help them with the other two, but if I can eliminate that big bucket of stress called money, it frees up oceans of energy to really deepen their relationships and sort of climb up Maslow's hierarchy of needs and, go to self-actualization. What do they really want to do with life?
Wow, man, that's powerful. I'm on your site right now, checking out your podcast page, and I see how this husband and wife team found financial freedom in 8 months. So we're going to definitely link to that episode in our show notes as well, because I think that was one of the episodes I did listen to before we recorded this podcast. Very, very powerful. And first of all, I just got to say I'm super excited. I am yacked right now to just start diving in, learning as much as I can. And I'm going to be honest with you, since you live here in Phoenix, I am definitely going to have to bug you a little bit more. Because this stuff is life-changing. Land might not be for everybody, but maybe it is for that right person. And just like you in 2001, somebody listening now in June 2018, this could be like the next thing that completely revolutionizes the way they handle money for the rest of their life, and more time with their kids, more time with their wives, more passive income, right? Everybody's chasing this passive income. And it's not sexy. But I think the sexy thing is being home every day with your wife and kids, not fighting traffic at 6 at night, Monday through Friday, like you said, getting the Friday blues instead of the Sunday blues. Very powerful stuff. I'm excited. Where can we find out more about you? If someone's listening to this and they're as yacked as I am, what's the next step for them?
So I think the best place to go is thelandgeek.com, and they can download for free our Passive Income Blueprint. They can get the ebook, How to Avoid the Three Fatal Land Buying Mistakes, and they can get our Art of Passive Income Model podcast delivered each week to their email inbox. And I'll tell you what, Chris, if they email support@thelandgeek.com and they put in the subject line Money Peach or Chris Peach, we'll send them our $97 Passive Income Launch Kit course for free. That's enough information. They can really dip their toe and see if this is something they really want to take further and really go deep with.
Okay, so I need you to repeat that. I'm going to write that down. It's going to be in the show notes. But so anybody listening to this, he did not tell me ahead of time he was going to do this, so I'm a little unprepared here, which I like. It's support@thelandgeek.com, correct?
Correct. Support@thelandgeek.com. Put in the subject line Money Peach or Chris Peach, and we're going to send you for free our $97 Passive Income Launch Kit course.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, you heard it from him. If you guys are at all interested, take it. It's a $97 value. So just put in the subject line, Muddy Peach or Chris Peach, and he'll send that out to you. Mark, what about your podcast? If somebody's listening, they're obviously listening to this podcast, they want to add you into their podcast lineup. What is the name of your podcast?
So it's the Art of Passive Income podcast. And they can also I just wrote a book, Chris, Dirt Rich, how one ambitiously lazy geek created passive income in real estate without renters, renovations, and rehabs. And that is on Amazon right now. And they can even go to thelandgeek.com/dirt-rich and download for free the first chapter.
Very cool. So thelandgeek.com/dirt-rich.
Dirt-rich, yeah.
Dirt-rich. We're going to have everything that we just talked about inside the show notes. If you are at that point in your life where you're ready for something new, but you don't want tenants, you don't want to be worrying about collecting rent checks or having to evict anybody or clean toilets or anything like that, that's just not your thing, don't worry, because there might be something else for you. This could be it. I would highly suggest that if we have the offer of a $97 value to you to go ahead and jump in to see if this is for you, definitely take Mark up on this. I think this is awesome. I'm going to be doing it. So, Mark, 2 questions we have for every single guest on the show. Number 1 is if you could give away any book for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
I've really thought about this because I am a huge reader. Like, I love books. And that's a really, really tough question. So I would say that a book that I really find transformative is, and it's going to sound woo-woo, but I kind of go back to it a lot, especially in times of stress, is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And once you start becoming super aware of your thoughts and how often we're actually living inside our own thoughts in our head, and if you just personified the thoughts of a human being, you would never listen to that human being. You'd be like, you never shut up, and you'll flip-flop at a dime, right? And so I really love that book. And I think that that's one of the more transformative books out there. I think for finance, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is one of those books, one of those classic mindset books that can really be transformative as well. The One Thing is a transformative book. I feel like I'm reading a book now that I think it's just a smack in the head. I don't know if you've ever read The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck, but this is sort of the newer version of it. It's Jordan B. Peterson, The 12 Rules for Life, an Antidote to Chaos. Just a very meaty book. And then I would say, if you're having a hard time taking responsibility in life, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F by Mark Manson. These are these books that I think could be transformative for somebody.
Very cool. Hey, I could tell you like to read, so a lot of these books I have read.
Yeah. I would say for fiction though, Shantaram is like the best audiobook I've ever listened to. Shantaram. It's like 32 hours. If you combine Goodfellas with Slumdog Millionaire, you'd get Shantaram.
Okay, so every single book that Mark just mentioned will be inside the show notes, so don't worry about writing all this down. And then, of course, another great book is Dirt Rich by Mark Podolsky. So we'll have that one in there as well. All right, so the last question I have for you, Mark, is the background on your home screen of your phone. What is it and why?
It's my wife, and, it's just kind of a reminder of I could have, a lot of external things, right? And I've got 3 children, but if that relationship isn't deep and meaningful, what good is everything else? You know what I mean? So it's just kind of that reminder of, this is the most important relationship in my life. My wife and I are doing well. My children are doing well. I'm more energized. It just brings everything up. And if you've ever been in a fight with a spouse or a girlfriend, you know how that can be so energy depleting and can sort of color everything in your day. So that's just having that awareness of like, this is the relationship. I have that on my home screen.
I love it. Hey, Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was awesome. This is one I'm not going to forget because it was so different, so new, unique. And I'm still, like, literally after this, this conversation, I'm still trying to get my mind around everything. And this might be something that I want to listen to 1 or 2 more times after we stop recording this one, because to me, it just seems like there's so much good information that you threw out there. And I think it's a lot of hope. Not just for me, but for anybody out there that's kind of thinking, what's my thing? I see, everybody flipping homes, and that seems like a great thing. And it is. I think you could definitely generate a lot of income. Or I see people starting blogs, and they're reaching financial freedom. Or I see people doing a podcast, or I see people starting social media following on Instagram or whatever it might be. And I think what I've learned is there's so many amazing ways out there to generate substantial income, not just replace your day-to-day job, but really create substantial income. And I'm familiar with a lot of these ways. And one of the ways I was never familiar with until just this last half hour was what you mentioned on this show. And I think a lot of people listening are going to feel the same way as I am. Like, this is so unique, so different. So I really encourage everybody to just go to thelandgeek.com. I've been literally geeking out on thelandgeek.com. Go listen to 1 or 2 episodes and see maybe this is the right fit for you. Maybe it's not, but maybe it is. And the cool thing is I'm a big believer in God places certain things in our life for a reason. And I could go back 5-6 years ago when we were completely broke, we ran out of money, and someone was introduced through a friend of a friend of a friend, and it ended up sparking this idea called Money Peach. And here we are today. And I listened to Mark's story about how he's driving down the 51 and he hates this job. And a buddy casually mentions to him, hey, let's go to New Mexico and let's look at some land. And it completely transformed his life. Maybe your story, just maybe, is, man, I was driving in my car, listening to this podcast about this guy who buys land in Texas, and for something it changed for me. And if it is, then awesome, because I would love to hear you on Mark's podcast one day talking about how you quit your job you hate and you're home all the time and you have, passive income for the rest of your life. I think that is cool.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate it.
All right, Mark, thank you so much for coming to the show. This is a lot of fun, and we'll definitely be in touch. Maybe have you back on to talk a little bit more in depth about, we'll call it Dirt Rich.
Thanks, Chris.
And just like that, we wrap up another amazing episode of the Muddy Peach podcast. All the show notes, the links, anything that Mark and I talked about, including every single book he mentioned, can be found over at muddypeach.com/session97. That's muddypeach.com/session97. Special thanks goes out to my producers, Steve Stewart, and my assistant, Kayla Sloan. Without them, this show would not be possible. Stay tuned next week for episode 98, where I bring on the founder of the Holistic Wallet, Michelle Bobrow. She paid off a tremendous amount of debt in a very short period of time, but we're going to be talking about the basics about handling money, some of the things you should be looking out for, and what the banks don't want you to know.
I always recommend just get familiar with that. Like, look at your account statements, look at the terms that they use, look at every disclosure, like read the language in like the stupid privacy policy pamphlets we get in the mail from our credit cards and that kind of stuff. Get a little familiar with the lingo and that kind of stuff so that when it comes time to do like the bigger things and to make bigger moves, it doesn't feel like such a foreign language.
We'll see you guys next week, same time, same place, with another amazing episode of the Muddy Peach podcast. And thank you so much for listening. Boom,